Hey, what's going on, guys? Wanted to record a real quick video for you guys since it's been about a week. I'm here driving in the car, and I wanted to talk about how to go ahead and not live a life of quiet desperation. And I know that sounds weird, like, Tristan, what do you mean by quiet desperation? But I posted this quote on my Instagram today, and someone asked me to go ahead and record a video about it. And most people in this world live a life of quiet desperation. What that essentially means is they know they should be doing something. They know they should be taking a specific action, or they know that they should be getting out of their comfort zone, or they know that they should be achieving something, yet they don't act on that impulse. They feel like they need to do something. They feel like they need to start a business. They feel like they need to achieve a certain goal. They feel like they need to go up and talk to that girl or talk to that boy. They feel the inclination to do something that they know is in their best interest, yet they don't act on that impulse. They don't act on that thing they know they should do because they feel fear and they regress to staying in their comfort zone. And what happens is this becomes a loop, like a feedback loop. Because the way developing a habit works is there's something in your brain called myelin, and I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly. And basically this is a substance that forms when you develop a habit. And if you look at someone's brain and, you know, neurologists or neuroscientists, when they're looking at someone's brain, they can tell based off the thickness of a specific part of the brain whether someone has developed a habit in a specific area. So basically what happens is whenever you're forming a habit, the thickness of this substance in your brain called myelin keeps getting thicker and thicker and thicker the more you act on a specific thing. So for example, if you do not, if every time you feel the need to go ahead and talk to a girl or a boy, you know, whatever, out in public, you see someone, you find them attractive, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna talk to this person, right? You have that impulse to go ahead and do it, and then you don't do it, and then you don't do it again, and then you don't do it again, and you don't do it again. What happens is you're actually strengthening that negative habit. You're actually strengthening the myelin in your brain, right? So that substance in your brain, that part of the brain that, you know, obviously I don't know the specific part of the brain that creates that impulse, but the part of your brain, whatever part that is, that's generating that, that impulse is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. It's getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And what that basically means is it's getting harder for you to act on that thing. You're developing a habit of not doing it. And that happens for most people throughout their entire life. And most people die, you know, die with regret, die living a life of quiet desperation. You can Google what most people's biggest regrets are. And if you do it right now, Google what most people's biggest regrets are on their deathbed. And you're gonna see that most people's biggest regrets are there's all these things they feel like they should have done that they didn't do. They chose comfort instead of living a life of doing uncomfortable things, which is where the growth happens. You grow by doing uncomfortable things. You grow by having that impulse for that thing that you know is in your best interest. Like, for example, when I was sitting in the Starbucks, and this girl was walking, you know, across from me, and she made direct eye contact with me. And not only did she make eye contact with me, but we held eye contact until she opened the door. She goes from the counter, we're making eye contact, till she goes to the door and opens the door and is still making eye contact with me after she opens the goddamn door. So we're making eye contact for a very long extended period of time. I'm getting like signs of attraction, flipping her hair, whatever. Now, in most circumstances, what I would have done is I would have done nothing. Like, there's this girl on the plane next to me as I was going from Los Angeles to Phoenix, sat next to me, thought she was cute, had this impulse to talk to her. I was like, oh, I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to talk to her. And then I never talked to her. I never did it. I never took action on that thing. But this time I was like, you know what? I'm not going to make the same mistake again. And I had the impulse, right? And it's like the impulse, like the feeling in the pit of my stomach, right? You know what I'm talking about, where it's kind of like, it feels like it's like a burning sensation, or like your stomach like drops a little bit. It's like when you're going on a roller coaster, you're about to go down a roller coaster, you feel the pit of your stomach kind of drop. And like, that's like the impulse. That's like the signal that you should take action. And it's like, you have 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And if you don't act on that feeling, it's going to pass and you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it because you've lost all momentum. Inertia kicks in. And it's almost like a survival mechanism that encourages us to take action on something. It's like built into who we are as a species. And you get it all the time. You get that little feeling in the pit of your stomach like, oh, I should do this. I should do this. It happens all the time. Yet most of us, if we're afraid of the thing that impulse wants us to do, if we're afraid of that thing, we don't act on it. We don't act on that impulse. Now what happens is, and I know I started this by saying, you know, how we're going to live a life of abundance and a life of not quiet desperation, because that's what you avoid. You want to avoid a life of quiet desperation. The answer to the question of how do you avoid living a life of quiet desperation is you act on that initial impulse, and then you do it again and again and again, despite the feeling of fear that you have, to the point where eventually it no longer is a fearful thing, and now it's just a part of who you are. It becomes easy. You act on that fear and act despite that fear over and over and over again, to the point where it no longer is a fearful thing. You no longer feel fear when you're doing it. And a great example of this is, for me, is sales calls. I've been doing sales calls, you know, for 6 years now. I've done literally 2,000, 3,000 calls. My scheduling software, OnceHub, says in the past 12 months, we booked over 1,000 appointments. And, you know, I've taken a percentage of those appointments, but just throughout the last 6 years, you know, I've been on so many sales calls to where it's well over 1,000 for sure. I don't know the exact number. But my point is, when I first started, I felt so much fear getting on these sales calls. Like, sometimes I would have an inbound appointment and I would literally be like almost throwing up for like 20 minutes before the call. Like, I would be so anxious prior to the sales call, like so anxious. And oftentimes, like, I was waking up pretty late when I first started working in my business. Like, when I first started my business, I was waking up pretty late. I was waking up at like 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or something like that, like pretty late in the day. And a lot of the people on the East Coast wanted to have early morning meetings way earlier than I would usually wake up. So what I would basically have to do is I would have to schedule these meetings for early in the morning, right? Way earlier than I usually wake up, because that's when most people wanted to schedule a call. And I was committed to getting the result, because I wanted to leave my mom's house. I wanted to drop out of college. I wanted to quit my job. I really wanted these things. I had the burning desire, right? I had the burning desire. I was like, I'm 18 years old. I fucking hate college. I need to figure out what I'm going to do. And I started my agency. I was committed, 100% committed. So here's what I would do. I would have these sales calls way earlier than I would usually wake up. And my sleep schedule was messed up. So what I would do is I would literally wake up at the time of the call, like 3 minutes before the call. I kid you not, literally like 3 minutes, sometimes on the dot. The time of the call, literally on the dot. And take that sales call when I was very early in the game, scared to death of this thing. But you know what happened? I did that once, and it scared the living hell out of me. and I got on the call and I executed the call. I used that fear inside of me to execute on the call. I used that feeling and I leveraged it and used it as energy to perform, right? And then I kept doing it again and again and again, scheduling these sales calls as soon as I woke up. Not even purposefully, literally, because that just, when people wanted to schedule a call with me, like I really didn't even have a choice. That's just like what I basically had to do in order to have these sales calls. And I would do that again and again and again, to the point where slowly over time, sales calls no longer were a form of anxiety for me. In fact, if you ask me now, it's like, dude, I love sales calls. It's like, that's like my favorite thing. I feel no fear, zero fear on a sales call, except when I go a really long time, like a month or 2 months without taking them. Like, obviously I'm training my team. I have a sales team, and you know, there's a period of time where I didn't take a single sales call for a long time, and I started feeling a little bit of anxiety before getting on the call. Not nearly as bad as the beginning, just a tiny bit, like a tiny little feeling, right? But you know, if I do it, you know, once a week or whatever, hop on a call occasionally, it's like I feel nothing, you know, it's completely comfortable. So my point is, everything starts as a fear in your life. Everything starts as some type of fear. Everything you know you should be doing starts as some type of fear. Starting that business, starting that thing, investing money into ads, hiring a new employee, training that employee, everything that you do that's brand new has some type of anxiety associated with it. You might not feel like doing it. You might not want to do it. You might be fearful about it. But the key to not living a life of quiet desperation is to do it anyway, and do it over and over again. Force yourself to do it to the point where it becomes comfortable. And eventually, what you'll keep doing is you'll keep leveling up. You're like, all right, this is too comfortable. Let me get to the next level. Let me get to a point where I'm uncomfortable again. You live in a state of discomfort. And you love that shit because you know as soon as you do it, as soon as you do that thing that makes you uncomfortable, as soon as you execute it, you're gonna no longer feel that fear, and it's gonna become a part of you. And you're gonna do it over and over and over and over again for the rest of your life, to the point where you're now worth $1 billion. You're now worth $100 million. You're now worth whatever. You've now achieved your dreams because you never settled for a life of comfort, and you always push yourself to a point where you're uncomfortable. That is how you live a life, not out of quiet desperation, but a life where you make your dreams happen and you make what you want become a reality. Hope that's helpful.